Asking the question, who's in charge of your health, may elicit a number of different responses. Some might be quick to say, the government's in charge of my health. They're the ones that make the decisions as to what I do, what I can't do, what's approved, what is not approved. Some might say it is their medical provider, their PPO network, their HMO network, or whoever the providers are that you consult. And you might say they're in charge of health because they can approve this procedure, they can deny this procedure. They're the ones that are in charge of it. And then there's a third area that you might look at and suggest that perhaps it is neither of those entities, but perhaps it is a person that you see every day in the mirror, yourself. And so today we look at that and we understand again that ultimately that we're in charge of our health. It's not someone else. Others may have a part to contribute, but we're the ones that have to make the decision as to how that plays out. And I understand that they may make decisions that are adverse to what we would desire or what we want. Ultimately, though, we're the ones who are able to make that final decision, even though they may make decisions and they make things that impact us. Maybe the doctor does not see and understand and know, but I don't want us to put all of the eggs or the power into their hands, but to know that we are the ones still who have the ability to be able to make choices and decide. With that in mind, today I am going to look at a couple of aspects of health. And in the weeks coming, there'll be other presenters that will talk about health and different relations. Today, my objective is to talk about two areas that I think that you will probably be most concerned about. And that is to touch briefly on the area of exercise and to also touch briefly on the area of caloric intake or what we consume. My objective is to be able to maybe enlighten your eyes to some of the pieces around that, and at the same time, perhaps maybe dispel a myth or two that may be associated. We start first in the Bible in the book of John chapter 2, 3 John 2. And there we read the following. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So that classically, God wants us to be in health. He desires us to have longevity of health. And we know that our health is impacted by a number of things. And again, some of those are beyond our control. We can't control the atmosphere. If there are pollutants in the environment, we can't control that. If those are things that are beyond our control, we didn't do it. If there are pollutants in the water and so forth, the chemicals that may cause birth defects or may cause types of cancers and so forth, we didn't put that there unless we were directly responsible. But usually, we weren't responsible. But we live and learn. Many years ago, when you would change your oil, I don't know how many of you would change your oil and just let the oil drop down to the ground. You didn't have a way to collect it. You didn't think about collecting. You just changed it. Oil just went into the ground. That was it. And today, of course, we know significantly better that is not the way to do things. But God wants us to prosper. And prospering is not just speaking about it, but he actually gives us various principles or instructions as to what can we do to prosper? Now, what can we do to have our bodies in as best condition as we can? In Exodus 15, verse 26, we read, and said, if thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord your God, and will do that which is right in his sight, and will give ear to his commandments and keep his statutes, keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon you, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that heals you. So the diseases and so forth that fell upon the Egyptians, God wanted to set a blessing upon his people that they would not have those same things, that they would not have to experience those same adversities. Please keep in mind that there were a number of judgments that came upon the Egyptians because of their abuse, their mistreatment of Israel. One of the signs that God gave as they were departing or leaving out of Egypt is that he brought various calamities. The scriptures speak of them as plagues. There were a series of plagues, at least 10 plagues that fell upon Egypt in preparation for Israel leaving out. Amongst those, there were some certain things that touched them bodily. Deuteronomy describes there were certain ailments that they had, some that they would not be able to see, some hemorrhoids, various tumors and cancers and so forth. And these were things that Jehovah wanted to remove from his people, ultimately, that they would be in the bosom of health. So when you look at health, that they would be able to enjoy health. This was his plan as they went into the Canaan land, that ultimately sickness would disappear, that it would not become a common thing, that it would be something that would be rare, and that they might be healed and to be restored. When we go back to the book of Genesis, we see some of the plan from the very beginning. And this is a text of scripture that is sometimes misunderstood. It says in Genesis 2 and verse 16, that the Lord God commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may do what? Freely eat. You may have heard at various health meetings that that text means that of the abundance of all that there is in the plant kingdom, that you can eat whatever you want. Have you heard that before? Like you can eat freely. So freely, and I don't mean to the point of being a glutton and overindulging, but essentially whatever is there, go ahead and eat. You may freely eat. These are the things that God has made. Of all these you may freely eat. Notwithstanding, the verse preceding that in verse 15 says, the verse following it in verse 17 says, but of the tree of the garden, of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. I am not making this a theological discussion this evening, but I put it there for the contrast. 16 isn't saying, well, if you have fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables, just go ham on it. Have whatever you want. But 17 gives us the clarifying idea. In that 17 is saying that you cannot eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but this one you can do what? You can eat. Meaning you may freely eat this one, but this one you cannot freely eat of. It is not an idea of quantity. That's not the idea. Sometimes it is shared as quantity. Eat whatever you want of all this, as much as you want. And some people will go so far to say, eat as much vegetables as you want. You can't get big by eating vegetables. You heard that before? Yeah. Eat as many beans as you want. You can't gain weight by eating beans. No. Eat as much rice as you want. You can't gain weight by eating rice. You can't gain weight doing this, so forth. So eat as freely as much as you want of that, and that's totally fine. That's not what it's talking about. It's a contrast between two things, meaning this is one that is allowed. Yes, you may freely have this, or that you may have access to this, but this is one that is disallowed, that you can't have it. This is not, again, about quantity, but rather just permission. You have permission to eat this, whereas you do not have permission to eat this. That is important to be able to understand, because in it, what we eat impacts us directly as well as indirectly. And if we have the idea that, okay, I can eat as much of this as I want, again, sans indulgence. I'm not talking about, I'm just eating till I throw up. But if there's the idea that I don't have to worry about this, there's no adverse effects to it, I can eat as much of this as I want, I will not gain weight. It will not impact my health. That was not the idea what Genesis is saying, because again, I know that there's some that would say, well, there are no side effects of eating lettuce, there's no side effects of eating tomatoes and so forth. That's not the idea. The idea is there's moderation, there is temperance. You may have these, and these you are allowed to eat, but of these you may not eat of them. They impact and influence our health. In the United States, currently, the average life expectancy, as you can see, from 1960 to now, it has risen dramatically. In the course of 4 decades, it's risen nearly 10%. In fact, it went up to close to 80, and then it dropped down to 77.28. That is like the average lifespan of a person in America. In comparison, the United Kingdom and Canada have significantly higher life expectancies, about 3 years and so forth. And there are different factors that go into this, health being one of them, crime, possibility of having one's life taken short in an act of violence and so forth. But overall, it's about 77 years. I submit to us that this is, again, not the life expectancy that we talk about in the scriptures. In the context of the scriptures of expectancy and living, when we're at the age of 77, 65 and so forth, most of us are on the downside of life. In fact, we say that we're in prime of life in our 30s. That's like the optimum level. In the 30s, you're at prime of life. And so you're going up a steep cliff, and you hit there, and it's like linear. You reach the apex, and then it's a slow, and then it's a steady drop off on the other side, right? And so when you go up, and then you come off on the other side. This is not what was intended for us. The intention that God designed for us is that we may be able to have life, and that we may have life more abundantly. And so between that time period, there are certain things that we can do to be able to certainly promote life, to be as healthy as possible. And notwithstanding, I will give as a disclaimer, no matter how well we eat, no matter how much rest we get, no matter how much trust we have in God, we will certainly get sick, and we will assuredly die. For the Bible tells us that it is appointed unto all men to die. After this, the judgment. So we're going to do our best, though, to be able to live. For why will you die before the time? So there are certain things we can do that can precipitate or that can hasten death, and there are certain things that we can do to slow up the process. And so we're going to look at some of those things of slowing up the process while recognizing that as healthily as we can eat, as many green drinks as you can stomach, as many salads as you can possibly consume, as many vegetable dishes and so forth you can have. All of those things are great, and they have their place, but they will not make us live forever. You know, there is no proverbial panacea that we can find. There is no silver bullet that will defy aging, that will cause us to live forever. Men have been in quest for the fountain of youth, and no one has found it, because there is no fountain of youth. We all will age, we all will get sick, we all will die. And even as we seek to follow God's plan as best we can, sickness is the lot of humanity. And thus, when we are sick, contrary to popular opinion, we don't have to find a reason to share with people why we're sick. It is of interest to me that when ailments come to people, that particularly those of religious faiths have to find a reason to be able to speak as to why this happened. I need to find a reason and to say, well, this is why it happened. Well, it's because I didn't eat this right, because I drunk too much of this, because so forth. It never is a simple reason is because I'm a son of Adam. And I am sick, sometimes by our own choice, sometimes by no action of our own. We need not find per se a reason, but seek to just live in harmony with the laws of health and nature as best we can. One of the contributing factors, of course, that can hasten death we'll talk about is the concern of obesity. And that's something, of course, we all look at in weight gain. So we'll look at that in the lack of exercise and how it all ties together. So it's a simple, basic functioning definition. We're going to talk about calories. Anyone know what a calorie is? Talk about it in the context of food. Well, calories is just simply as you're looking at it, the amount of energy that needs to be burned from what you are consuming. So we're eating a certain meal. It's like intake minus output equals like the net result. And if we have more calories than what we're expending in the process of a day, then that means we have an excess calories. If we have less calories than what we're consuming in the process of a day, then we have a deficit of calories. In simple language then, if we're trying to lose weight, which first of the year, beginning of the year, most people have a determination to lose weight. There's some that say, oh, I want to gain weight this year, I want to put on some more muscles or so forth. But typically speaking, it's a process then of trying to expend calories. So what does it look like? How many do I need? And now, of course, we ask people. People will give their answers, but we'll look at it. And this is according to what scientists suggested research this. And so men that are ages 19 through 30 need roughly 2,400 to 3,000 calories a day. Okay, and this is to maintain weight. 31 to 59, about 2,200 to 3,000 calories. And then 60 and over, about 2,000 to 2,600 calories is about the average that a man would need in that age group. Now, if you are younger than that, then you would probably need less calories than that. What about for ladies? Similar capacity. Age 19 to 30, 2,000 to 2,400 calories. Women 31 to 59, about 18 to 2,200 calories. And then women that are over 60, about 1,600 to 2,000 calories. So I have an exercise. The exercise is you find your age and find where you should fall in that intake. Again, this is just maintaining. This is not losing. So if I want to lose weight, then essentially all I'm doing is I'm fall, since the age groups are so broad, I fall in the age group of 31 to 59. Okay? So I would look at this and say, well, if I want to maintain, then I need to have 22 to 3,000 calories. That's like the lowest is 2,200, the highest is 3,000 that I would take, being a male. If I were a female between 31 and 59, the lowest amount of calories I would need during the course of a day would be 1,800. The top end would be 2,200. So if I'm trying to gain weight and I'm a female, what would be the minimum that I would need to consume to gain weight if I'm 31 to 59 in that group, maybe 45 years old, 53 years of age. I'm trying to gain weight. What is the minimum I would need to be able to put on some weight? Over 2,200 calories. Now, if I'm trying to lose weight, and again, I'm in that same age group, I'm 33, what would be the most I would want to eat? 1,800. Now, does that sound like a lot of calories to you? No. It doesn't sound like a lot? Anyone sound like a lot? Anyone sound like that's a whole lot? Well, again, that's the sort of the math. If I want to gain, I need to eat more. If I want to lose, I need to have less. That's pretty simple, isn't it? But the problem happens is that, this little guy right here doesn't care about what this paper says. And this little guy right here doesn't care about what the paper says. And this guy here definitely doesn't think about what the paper says. Okay? To that, it looks and says, papers and charts and formulas and so forth, all those things be damned. That looks good. It smells good. It tastes good. This is what you want. In borrowing the words of Scripture, in a paradox, the spirit is willing, but the stomach is weak. So I want it, even though I know this basic formula and basic equation, but if I stick to it, then I'm going to fall within that context, because anywhere between this, as long as I stay in that middle range here, then all right, I'm maintaining. If I want to lose, I need to go on this side. If I want to gain, I need to go on this side of it. So let's look at a variable here, because there are some different factors that influence caloric intake. And so we looked at that, so you know your baseline, you know your number, right? Hopefully you know, hey, this is what you need to fall in just to maintain. Well, what are some of the factors that can influence our caloric intake? Some of them are age. So the older we are, in reality is the less we need to consume normally. And again, I say normally because there are variables, okay, which we'll talk about momentarily. But the age, the older we get, our metabolism starts to slow down. So we don't need to eat as much because we're not as hungry. Now, I know, again, there are some that would say, well, you're letting hunger dictate how much you eat. We always let hunger dictate how much we eat. You don't eat typically speaking, there are times in which you may eat more because you're hungry, and there are times in which you eat less because you are not as hungry. You're like, I really don't feel like eating. If you're sick, do you want to eat the same amount that you eat if you're not sick? No. Like, okay, just a little bit. Maybe you don't even have an appetite or so forth. But the variables in terms of age, typically, the older we get, the less we eat because of that situation of metabolism. So, someone like a Brandon Ricky, their age, my daughters, Rakia, they're going to eat more. And then you look at them and say, where do you put all that food? You mean to tell me you're going to eat all this food and they'll eat it up, and a few hours later, they're ready to eat again, right? So that was like the nightmare for my parents with 4 boys. When Thanksgiving came, we had a pretty big spread, big turkey, potatoes, corn, the whole 9 yards, prepared, fixed up, and we ate around 2 o'clock, and by that night, everything was done. There were no leftovers. You weren't making some turkey soup for the following day. Everything was done, just completely gone. So if you came back and looking in the refrigerator around 10 or 11, forget it. It's too late. Why? Because again, growing boys, metabolism, and we were maybe greedy at the same time. So you put those things together, it's not a good recipe for leftovers. But age influences those things. So you can eat more because of the energy that is being exerted at a younger age versus as we age. Okay? So in theory, our bodies need less. In fact, in reality, our bodies need less. But psychologically, though, a lot of times we still want to eat like we used to. Same as, when you're younger and you could lift up stuff and do stuff, and you get older and you still think, I can still lift up the same thing and do the same thing. And your body says, you might think you can, but we're not going to lift that up. Or you lift it up and you're down for 2 weeks, right? Because your body just can't handle it anymore. So you think you can do it, but the body's saying, hey, you're not a young buck anymore. The days of doing that, that's over. We have to make a transition. So mentally, you're not prepared for it, but the body is saying, I can still handle it because I think I can do it. So no, that doesn't work that way. Secondly, we also know that there are changes in terms of the sexes. Men usually will need more calories than women will. And that's only because of muscle mass. Men have bigger muscle mass, greater muscle mass than ladies do. So men and women can eat the same meal, and in theory, a man will be able to expend it quicker than a lady will simply because of muscle mass. The more muscles you have, the more energy that muscle needs. Environmental temperature and so forth. So if it's colder, like the bears, they hibernate. Temperature has an impact upon us and our body, okay? The heat and so forth, those have impacts. Energy expenditure, what are we doing? Do we have a job that's sedentary? If we're in school, we're sitting at a desk all day. If we're at work, we're sitting at a desk all day. Are we on our feet, moving around? Someone who works construction is going to have a much healthier appetite than someone that talks on the phone all day. Or someone who's, moving boxes or books or whatever the case may be. So your own expenditure of energy. So it's not a one size fits all. This is a range in terms of calories, but you need to be the one that would determine how much do you need for your body to sustain itself based upon your goals. Of course, we know the pregnancy that you're going to eat more because you're eating for 2 or 3 or 4, whatever the case may be. So a woman's going to eat more pregnant because she's eating now for the baby that is growing. Hormonal status. Various changes in hormones will impact how much people want to eat. Okay, so certainly men have changes in hormones. We don't talk about it a lot, but as men age, men lose testosterone. Okay, so that's one of the things that makes a man a man. The hair, muscle, so forth. It changes. And so women also has changes in terms of hormone changes as well. So all of these things for male and female, it impacts us. Why? Why? Because we are human beings that are affected by sin. Okay? And again, you can eat as healthy as you want, but you're not going to change these things. Then lastly, dieting behaviors, how you eat and so forth, this will impact. So here's our exercise then, very quickly. Now this is a regular diet, okay? This is a regular diet that a person might consume. This is not a vegetarian diet or a plant-based diet. But I'm just going to test you out to see where you sit and what you know. So I've marked out the places of what the actual caloric intake is. I will read to you what the item is, and your job will be to guess roughly how many calories is in that meal, okay? How many calories are in that meal? So the first one is a breakfast. So this is like a typical meal, which would be 2 eggs on 2 whole wheat pieces of bread with avocado. And your job is to guess then, well, How many calories do you think that is? And we know then if it's a male in this age or a female this age, how many calories you need. So we'll go through it. So breakfast, 2 eggs on 2 whole wheat pieces of bread with avocado. Any idea how many calories that might be? 4,500, 700? Okay. All right, anyone else? Going once, going twice? I'm going to go, and that was 428 calories. Okay, 428 calories for 2 eggs and 2 whole wheat pieces of bread with avocado. Now, again, overall, whether or not you subscribe or would say, well, a meat-based or a vegetarian diet is good or bad is not my point. But this is a pretty healthy breakfast, though. Okay, you have your bread, your whole wheat bread. So you have your grains, avocado, and you have some egg there. Okay, so 428 calories. Now for lunch, I go and sit down and have a chicken wrap with lettuce, sour cream, and cheese. Any idea what we're looking at here? 850? Okay, 650, 700. Okay, so let's see. So we're 544. Okay, so we're at The Price is Right. You know, some of you would have overbid. Okay, but we're not in The Price is Right. Where the calories are right. So it'd be 544. Okay, so a chicken wrap with lettuce, sour cream, and cheese. 544. Okay, so it's not a lot. This is one cut in half. Yeah, one cut in half. No, but it's not going to change that much, right? You know, I mean, you may go from say 120 to 170, but it's not going to be like a 200. It's not going to move the pendulum that far to the other side, right? All right, dinner. So now we're at dinner. Alfredo, 2 cups. Anyone? Okay, anybody else? 1,000? It's fettuccine. Alfredo, fettuccine Alfredo. So 600. Okay, so I'm getting anywhere from 600 to 700. Okay, so we're at 830 calories. Okay, we're at 830 calories for dinner. So this is kind of like a typical, and now please keep in mind, this is pretty much like a healthy variation, right? A lot of people aren't eating this healthy. You know, so keep that in mind. If I change this over and put, probably reality is maybe, a sausage and egg McMuffin, 2 of them, and coffee or donut. And probably for lunch, maybe a slice or 2 of pizza, a Big Mac, something like that, a burger. That's kind of reality. This is like a healthy version here. Oh, and definitely not the fries, and that's a supersized fry, not a small fry. Plus the Coke to be able to wash it down. Okay, so we're already at how many calories in for the day? Okay, 420 and 540 is like 970. Plus another 830, we're at like almost 1,800 calories right now. Okay? Oh, no, 1,800. Yeah, 1,800. Okay, I'm sorry, I thought I said 1,800. So yeah, so we're 13, 17, we're about 1,800 calories already. But then, in between, there's some little munchies that people have. So I have a strawberry banana oat shake. So how much for my banana oat shake?
What size is it?
It's probably about an 8 ounce.
8 ounce?
Okay, about 2. You said about 200? And that's pretty healthy. I mean, that might resonate with, I think that's what probably most of us might have is like a little strawberry banana oat shake. And that's 900 to 1,000 calories.
You didn't say ice cream was in it. That looked like milk.
So
Looked like it's smoky.
it looks like, well, this is what it has. I didn't make it up. I'm just going by it. So we can maybe dig. Okay, so we're at 900 to 1,000. So now we've just kind of blown up that scale we've been looking at thus far. And the last one, just a little snack, a large apple with 2 tablespoons of peanut butter.
Oh, no, that's 90, that's 300 and something.
Say about 350. All right, so we're about at 300. Okay, so for the day, we're sitting at about 3,000 calories. It says 300. That is not right. It's 3,000. Okay, our number did not get moved over. So 3,000, all right. So now we look at that from the perspective of, well, I may not eat like that. So in fairness then, you won't see this, but I had to put in like a plant-based option, a vegan option, all right. So quickly then, I'm starting with a high-protein smoothie for breakfast because this might more mirror, what we might like, right? So maybe a smoothie and an orange. I have 2 oranges and, a handful of, not a handful, but a couple of ounces of pecans. Now that I think that may resonate more with us, right? Hey, I'll get my smoothie drink and a couple of oranges and, some nuts. Because again, of all these you may freely eat. So I'll eat a few of these and this will be all right. So how much for my protein smoothie?
650 to 7.
Okay, and this again is straight, it's a little bit of tofu, a cup of silk vanilla, 2 cups of silk vanilla milk, 2 medium bananas, tablespoon of peanut butter, and 4 cubes of ice. Okay, we'll go with, let's see what we have. So we're at 655. All right, 655 calories we started, okay? Yeah, 2 bananas. All right. But then again, I had to have my oranges to it. And most of us, I don't think you're going to get too full off of a smoothie. For a while you will, but it's going to wear off, right? So a couple of oranges then. How much for my oranges?
That's going to be 90 and 90. How many oranges?
2. 2 oranges. I need my 2 oranges.
About 175 more calories.
So 120, 175. So 123. 123 calories. And, a little bit of pecans. Because the pecans aren't they good in like omegas or something? I need this, my omega 3 or.
200.
So I need, a couple of ounces. So again, that's not a lot.
200.
I tried 392.
90.
Okay. So here we are on our breakfast, and we're eating pretty healthy because, we want to follow a plant-based diet. And so far for breakfast, how much have we already consumed? In nuts, 392. 2 ounces. 2 ounces. Okay. So we're about at 1,200 calories just from breakfast. Okay. Yeah. So we just had breakfast, and the rest of the day is in front of us, and we had to start out because breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So we got to get started on it. So around lunchtime, I'm not going to do anything too fancy, but here's a banana almond butter that I'm going to have, and some cauliflower and tahini. So again, it's not, too much. All right, so this is a banana almond butter. So 2 bananas, 2 tablespoons of almond butter. So it's like a little bit of, this is good protein. It's good, almond butter. Yeah, 2 bananas and almond butter. So total of 4 tablespoons.
And 2 bananas.
Yeah.
About 800 calories.
So we're 400. All right, so we're 400 now. Okay, and then what about our cauliflower and tahini? I'm not a tahini connoisseur, but no. So I have cauliflower and tahini. So we're now at 411. So now I've just had breakfast and lunch. I'm at 2,000 calories. Okay, this is a vegan diet. Okay, a plant-based diet. Yeah, you could have veggie burger and fries. And so again, the mindset is, well, I'm not going to eat say Impossible Burger or a Beyond Burger. I'm going to eat this. This is going to be a lot more healthier. And to that extent, yeah, it may be a lot more healthier, but I'm talking calories now. Okay, so I'm going beyond just the fact of whether this has oil or what amount of oil to the reality of, okay, what is the total calorie, the caloric intake?
We'll see. We see the calories, but because we're vegan and we're told that we can't eat a little free or we get comfortable. See, now you understand what happened to me. No, I'm serious. Because It don't work on everybody the same way.
No, well, keep in mind, yeah, well, keep in mind that, a calorie is a calorie. Okay? It is. It's how much energy does your body have to use to burn it. So your body doesn't care if it's, 500 calories from Doritos or if it's 500 calories from, a plant-based Dorito, right? It's the same thing. So we a lot of times think, okay, well, I'm eating healthy, so therefore I can eat more of this. And that's not the reality. The reality of it is that, yes, you may be eating healthy, and I'm not saying, so don't take away from what I'm not trying to say, because I'm not trying to say we should not be mindful of what we consume, because we should. We want to eat as healthy as possible, but I am just taking an added dimension to say, yes, you may, an apple is healthy, but maybe I don't need to eat, 3 of them. Walnuts and almonds are healthy, but maybe I can't have a whole handful of them. Veggie burger is fine, but maybe I can't eat 2 of them. That's the only thing that I am saying. I'm not saying don't, it's not saying, well, you might as well just eat, whatever you want to eat. That's not the idea. Again, the idea is you want to be concerned with how many calories am I consuming at the end of the day, okay? Because your body isn't going to treat it any differently from one source versus the other source. It's not going to burn up 50 calories from a head of lettuce quicker than it will burn up 50 calories from a pack of meat. It's the same amount of energy that must be expended to be able to use it.
But I've heard other people say that all calories are not the same.
So, okay, people say all calories are not the same, but again, that is not the case. Now, the other components, again, you can tie into it, because if I ate a Big Mac, right, and let's say it's 500 calories, and I ate apples and so forth, they're 500 calories. The calories are the same. The body has to respond to them the same way. But now there's an added layer to, say, the Big Mac, because now if I have, whatever is maybe baked in, excessive oil or so forth. So those are different components as well that would tie into, but ultimately the reaction and treatment of the body in terms of metabolism and breaking it down is going to be the same expenditure. That's what is there. So one doesn't go through quicker, and one doesn't go through easier. Now you talk about that. I know we use the expression empty calories, and I guess that's sort of a misnomer, because you might say, well, I'm getting a bunch of food and it's like empty calories, I'm not full. The whole thing about the misnomer of empty calories is you might consume a lot, it still has the same impact, you're just not full because it's not nutrition dense. Okay, so that's how maybe you could eat a whole plate of X and still feel like, man, I'm still hungry. And it may not be nutrition dense, so it doesn't have the same feeling to cause you to be satiated as you would otherwise. But the effect upon the body is the same. So if you ate, 4,000 calories plant-based and 4,000 calories meat-based for that instance, it is the same net effect, okay? Last piece here. So we have dinner. We got to make it to dinner. So we have some Kung Pao Tempeh. And we're just going to do 2 servings of Kung Pao Tempeh. Nothing fancy. And this has some soy sauce, some peanuts, a little bit of salt, some mixed vegetables, and some tempeh. And incidentally, when we talk about serving sizes, serving sizes are pretty small. So, we must also point out the obvious. Serving sizes are pretty small. So if you like, those of you who cook, like a measuring cup, maybe like this wide and this high. Like the circumference is maybe like, maybe I can pull one up. It's not real big is the idea. Okay, so that's a cup. So if we're saying, look, you have a cup of something, to us a cup is like this high and this wide. It's like, okay, our serving is that. That's not a serving. That's like 3 servings in one. So it adds up pretty quickly. And again, what we have in the back of our minds, well, I can eat all this. This is fine. So I have 3 servings of it. No, it's totally different. A serving is something really small. So it's something to consider. So our last meal is going to be 2 servings of Kung Pao tempeh. Where do you think you are for this one? You know, it's like, so we have our tempeh, mixed vegetables, soy sauce, some peanuts, some salt, and pepper. Okay, 1,200. A little over. We're at 975. Okay, 975. So quickly to bring that to a close. If I ate that for a day, I'll be at 2,900 calories. Okay, 29. Now again, that's not us, because most of us, we're gonna go back and get a little bit more. So we easily could be in the 3,500 to the 4,000 calorie section quite easily. And this doesn't have dessert in it, by the way. Yeah. So there's no dessert, no cake, no ice cream, and there's no drink in there either. Okay. So if we had like a cup of juice, that may be like 120 calories. That's an 8 ounce, and most of us, again, we're not drinking 8 ounces. We're drinking like 12 to 24. I was like, okay, man, that first one, that was the right side of my mouth. The other one's going to be the left side. So I need 2 of those drinks. So we're up there. So we're easily kind of blowing through those numbers pretty quickly. So keep that in mind. Okay. So again, that is something that is there. So that's a piece there in terms of what happens on the calorie aspect. So look at your servings. Look at it and kind of see. And in America, we want big servings. When we go out to eat, I want to feel like I'm getting my money's worth, and I want the food falling off the plate. I don't want the little fancy picture with the little small thing, and it's like $85 for the plate, and I want just falling off. The guy can barely make it to the table. That is so much. That's what I want. And to pack it up to go and to feel like, okay, I got my money's worth. But our thinking, though, in terms of maybe how we consume, so it's just changing our process of it. So I would encourage you then to start looking at a serving size and to see how much is a serving size. So like we did with our money, you start looking, okay, where is it going? And you look and say, I had no idea I was spending $500, on the mocha latte, the vegan ones. I just went there, once a day, and it's like, I was spending $9 a visit. I'm spending $500. That type of reaction. So it's the same thing looking at in terms of food. And it's not to create a disdain for food. It's not the idea. You don't want to, food is fine. It's fine to eat food. You want to eat a healthy supply of food, a variety of food and so forth. But you're just keeping track of, okay, what am I consuming and how is my body responding to this? And we're not trying to starve. So you can't starve to lose weight. That does not work. It works short term, but not long term. Because your body starts saying, what are you doing? And it starts saying, well, I don't know when I'm going to get some food, so I'm going to hang on to this fat that's here because I don't know when the next meal's coming. And now you're frustrated because I've skipped 5 meals and I haven't lost any weight. And that's because the body is working, saying, I don't know when the next meal is coming. So fads do not work. In short term, they will. Long term, they won't. So whatever you do in terms of a process, you want something that is, sustainable, something that I will be able to do. And I know that there's some people who eat 2 meals a day, some people eat 3 meals a day. And when we look at these numbers, I get it. If you eat 2 meals a day, whether you eat 2 meals a day or 3 meals a day, knock yourself out. You find what works best for you. Okay, so 2 meals a day, it may suffice. So you might say, well, hey, I eat a really heavy meal in the morning, really heavy meal in the afternoon. That's totally fine. Some may do better with 3 smaller meals, but you find what works and you make it work for you. But keep in mind again to begin to look, well, how much am I consuming? Because I want to make sure. And then there are some times that you start looking at even, salads. Salads are totally healthy. Good thing. But then you might look and realize that, man, I've lathered it on with like 200 calories of dressing from just like 2 tablespoons. And I'm not saying you're trying to eat a cardboard box. So please don't go the opposite sense. I'm just trying to bring consciousness to what you're consuming, to what I'm consuming, how much of it, and you might start looking, saying, well, I think I'll forego that for something else because a calorie is a calorie. Last piece we'll go to quickly is exercise. And I know, and I go here because these are two areas that I've looked at, and even when we talk about calories, I certainly can relate to it because I easily gain weight. You know, I can look at food and like it goes there quite easily. And sometimes I've looked back and didn't realize how much additional weight that I gained until you start looking back and say, you know, man, I was a pretty healthy size. Do not fall into the trap of two extremes. One is that people want every shape to feel accepted. And so I want to try to couch my words wisely. Do not feel ashamed of whatever your body size is one thing. So if you're, you know, as skinny as a rail or as big as a house, you know, don't be ashamed of body size. You know, hey, this is where I am at this particular stage. And so in that respect, you know, I accept that. I'm a child of God just as much so if I'm, you know, 20 pounds underweight, if I'm 20 pounds overweight. That doesn't matter to him. You know, I'm not any more pretty in his sight. I'm no less uglier in his sight because of that. That's just a physical thing to human beings. So, appreciate again where you are, you know, in your journey. But we can all have a determination that we may want to improve. In accepting where we are, though, don't accept someone else's view of what fitness is like for you. You know, what they perceive their body image is, because it's going to change. And if you look in Western society, it changes. You know, in the 50s, they like a certain shape. In the 60s, they like a certain shape. In the 70s, they like a certain shape. In the 80s, they like a certain shape. And so for women, it's particularly challenging if you're trying to emulate that, because every 10 years or so, the body shape changes. You know, what's in vogue, like you talk about clothing changes, for women, it changes as well. And people are trying to earnestly follow what Hollywood sometimes presents, and it continually changes. So you're not trying to follow what is there, but you're following out again what is healthy for you. Now, that being said, there are some healthy ranges of where we need to fall into in terms of weight-wise, okay? So not everybody's going to be the same. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but there's some ranges that we'll fall into, and I'll share those. Before doing so, though, quickly, in the next last 5 minutes or so, exercise. I'll talk quickly on this because we do need exercise. We all need exercise. Really, well, how much do you need? According to a study that was done by WHO, which is the World Health Organization, they said the children ages 5 through 17 should have a minimum of 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a day. At least 3 days a week should include vigorous aerobic activity and activities that build strong muscles and bones. So again, that's the ages of 5 to 17. So if you fall in that group, you're under 17 or younger, 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a day. And we'll define moderate and vigorous shortly. Adults age 18 to 64, a minimum, not a maximum, a minimum of 150 to 300 minutes of moderate or 75 to 150 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity a week. So anyone that's an adult age 18 to 64, your baseline is at least 150 to 300 minutes of aerobic activity every week. Twice a week muscle training or muscle strengthening can provide additional benefits. So that's, you know, lifting some weights, doing some type of calisthenics. Calisthenics are maybe like jumping jacks, push-ups, so forth. Doing something there, because the older you get, you lose muscle mass. You know, for ladies that have gone postmenopause, the concern there is brittle bones. So you're trying to be able to work to be able to keep your bones strong and rigid. And how do you do that? By some type of weight resistance. Of course, you know, you're still eating good and so forth, but exercise is important. Over age 65, seniors can follow the same guidelines as younger adults, but should also include strength and balance training 2 to 3 times a week to protect against falls. Like balance training is, like standing on one leg, right? Being able to bend over and to touch your toes. Various stretches and so forth, being able to work on balance and coordination. It's something that older adults should certainly do. There's also an area here for pregnant women, postpartum women, and those who also have chronic health conditions and disabilities. Is the same response that our body needs for exercise. For that exercise, I put in this picture here because I hate seeing it when I'm at the gym. It just burns me up. Okay, so if you decide to go to the gym and you want to make me, hot, get on a treadmill and spend your time checking Facebook and Instagram and so forth. We're not there to multitask. You're not there to multitask. Think of this as you start your exercise program. If you can carry on a conversation with somebody, I don't care whatever it is, you're not doing what you need to do. Now, I'm not saying kill yourself and you're to be out of breath, trying to suck air. But if you're carrying on a conversation just kind of gingerly and casually, then that may be a sign I need to step it up a little bit. Okay, because I'm not there to shoot the breeze with you. I'm not there just to talk. I'm there to be able to work. And if you have time to be able to check this and check that and so forth, again, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to get in, take care of what I need to do, and get out. All right, and then to be able to raise the heart rate, because you're trying to raise the heart rate in exercising. That's really vital. Even walking. I know we talked a lot about walking. Walking is great, but if I'm just casually just walking down the street like at this pace, like that's nothing. Okay, not trying to be curt, but if that's going to be if that's the most I can do, that's great. But if that's not the best I can do, and I can do better, and I'm just kind of lollygagging and just walking down the street and hey, what's going on, and just looking, I might as well just stay home and sit on the couch, kick my feet up, enjoy a burger and some chips and just relax, because that's not the idea. The idea is you're trying to do something to encourage your heart rate to rise. So as a note, if your heart rate is not rising in the exercise that you're doing, I'm not saying killing yourself, but if you're not getting your heart rate to be elevated, then you're not putting forth enough resistance to A, improve cardiovascular health, B, to be able to help with your circulatory system, C, to be able to help with your exercise and body strengthening, and D, to be able to help with possible weight loss or toning. So it should be a little bit of heart raising, and depending upon where you are, we can you can chart out to see, okay, I want to be at 70%, 60% of heart rate and so forth. But if it's just casual, no, that's not the idea. I'm going to skip this for time, and those are our heart rates and so forth. But here, I'll give this one a couple of pieces to you. This is from WHO. This is a little index in terms of time, and the idea is to be able to go on a 1.5 mile run, and again, it could be maybe a 1.5 mile walk. You start where you are. Okay? Everyone is at different levels, so don't try to get in doing what someone else has built up weeks to do. But wherever you can get in, and maybe I can only walk a block, that's totally fine. Maybe I can only walk from here to the back of the room and I'm out of breath, that's totally fine. But I'll keep doing it, and eventually I'll make it to the back of the room and I won't be as winded, and then I can make it to the door. And maybe the door as far as I can go and I'm winded. So I'm just, you're building where you are. I'm not looking at somebody else and just trying to build on where I am for my own personal benefit. So these are certain times that I would want to be able to target. Again, notice that I am increasing them with age, but I do want to share a couple of these as well, because we a lot of times don't go into this arena. And this is, again, to build up muscle strength, so we have to have some muscle strength in the process. So again, whether you're doing something like a calisthenic situation or push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, you want to be able to build muscle and to have some type of flexibility. So here's a chart that gives an idea of general push-ups. So for these young guys here, you ought to at least be doing more than 28 push-ups. Because it says age 25, women should do 20 push-ups, and the men should do 28 push-ups. So they're younger than that. I'd expect them to be doing way more push-ups than 28. But as you get older, 45 years of age, women like 14 push-ups, men 16 push-ups. 55, women 10 push-ups, men 12 push-ups. The numbers change, but you're continuing to try to stay in shape, okay, to be able to do something. There's information here as it pertains to sit-ups and stretching. Stretching is the last one we'll end on. Again, flexibility is important. You don't want to be so stiff that you can't move. And I've been there, not a pretty sight. Where you bend over and it's just, and I asked my wife, why is it that when you age, that when you bend down, you make grunting sounds? You know what I'm talking about? Like, kids, you say, pick this up, and they just drop down, pick it up, and they get back up. But, our age, you say pick it up. It's like, and so I said, is this person hurt? It's like, no, nobody's hurt. Are you tired? No, it's something with the psychology. I don't know why it comes, but our flexibility is important. And it's hard. So trust me on this. I know it's hard. I've suffered from back problems for just like muscle tightness from sitting down, sedentary stuff, just bust muscles, just all tight and so forth. And the only way I was able to get through that was to be able to start stretching. You have to start stretching, and it's sort of counterintuitive because as you stretch, it hurts. And so you're stretching is like, okay, this hurts, so you don't want to stretch. Well, the relief is in the stretching, so you have to, kind of go through it. Not a uncomfortable stretch, but you're going to feel some tension, but to be able to stretch, and so your legs, your hamstrings, and so forth. Trust me, it all is interconnected with the foundation. So it all goes back into it, and one of the areas, of course, to work through in the process of your stretching is in your core. So maybe next week we'll talk about some of those things, but your core is, pretty much like your midsection. That is contrary to what a lot of people think. A lot of people look at the feet as the foundation. Yes, the feet are important, but the core, it's this core area. So the stronger you're able to maintain and to get your core, then that's going to help for everything else. That helps, again, with your balance, standing erect, slouching over. All of those different things are very important, but you want to be able to maintain and to have your flexibility and to do so. So this information is there. You can certainly look it up, but to begin to practice stretching. So right now, if you look and say, you can't bend over and touch your toes, then think of it. If I can't bend over and touch my toes now, and again, it's not a indictment on anybody, but where am I going to be 5 years from now? Right? It's not going to get better. It's just going to get worse. And if I can't tie my shoes right now, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. So we have to get in front of it then to be able to change those things, because you want to be whenever the Lord decides to come. You don't want to. You want to be 70 years of age, and people, you're walking around and you're in pretty good health. You don't want to be 75 years of age walking around in pretty good health. Again, reasonable. I know you're not going to be as Jack LaLanne. We probably won't be a Jack LaLanne, okay? But as best we can be, we want to be. But to be able to prevent that is we take the necessary steps and changes now. I misspoke. The last piece, just to finish this off, is on our body composition. I'll read this. It says, if your weight circumference is greater than your hips, you carry more weight above the hips, you have an increased risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. The risk is even greater for women with weight circumferences of 35 inches or more, and for men with waist circumferences of 40 inches or more. So if my waist size as a man is bigger than 40 inches, then that is an increased risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. For a lady, with a waist circumference of 35 inches or more is an increased risk of heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So we learned a lot, talked a lot in terms of health, activity, and to be able to be vigorous. So here are some examples of moderate activity. Walking fast. Notice again the adverb, fast. Okay, walking slow, that's not the idea. Walking fast, okay? Roughly probably about 4 miles an hour. Water aerobics, bicycling on mostly level ground or pushing a lawnmower. Now, vigorous activity is like running, swimming laps, fast bicycling or biking hills, playing basketball or soccer. So getting moving, getting the heart accelerated, being able to exercise more is the idea. So we look at those areas of our body and trying to be able to take as best care of them as we can, recognizing that we only get one body. And so we treat this one as best we can. And I know that we haven't all made as best decisions as we can, but we thank God today is a new day. Today I can make different choices, different decisions. So I would just challenge you with those things to consider those and to be able to make a process. So maybe you look at it now and say, hey, this is where I am, and I'm going to chart this out and see where we can go over the next couple of weeks to be able to make the necessary changes and improvements there. I want to thank you for your time, for your sharing and participation today. Next week, we'll have our class at 3 o'clock. As we end today, so I end with prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you for the time we've been able to spend together, and I pray that you would please help us as we want to take better care of ourselves. And it's easier to want it and to talk about it and to envision what we desire. The hard part is trying to put into practice some things, sometimes pushing away from the table, maybe not even having something, or deciding to go on a walk or to do some type of exercise. Help us to see small changes that it would encourage us for the bigger goals that we so desire and the things that we aspire to. I thank you again for your grace that enables us to be able to do all these things. Be with us again as we separate, for we pray in Jesus' name, amen.